Welcome everyone to this new episode of the European Coatings Podcast. We've been growing quite a lot lately, and now we've decided to scale up, and now we have cameras. And I'm not going to be alone today, since we are having a little bit of technology here. It's going to be the topic about digitalization, and we will have LabV, one of the strongest companies in Europe that we have software providers and formulation support. I'm with my friend Charles Jouanique today with us, co-founder of LabV, and we will just be chatting a little bit about the trends that have been going on, what is about to happen, what he thinks that will be shaping the industry, and share a little bit with us what he does in his daily basis work. So welcome, Charles. How are you doing?
Hi, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it was super great that you managed to have some time for us from your customer visit.
Anytime.
Great. So, Charles, before we talk about LabV, do you remember the moment when you realized that we were having a problem with digitalization in the coatings industry?
I remember different moments, right? So I'm a mechanical engineer by training, which means I've been trained or studied how to develop products, right? And the first time I was in a lab, it was the very early days of LabV, actually. And I went into a lab and I saw this guy. He was a PhD in chemistry. So, to me, it's like high respect. It's very talented and probably a lot of expertise. And he was just doing copy pasting in Excel files. And I was just wondering why. Like, I don't understand why you're doing that. And you don't seem to enjoy it. So that's where the very first time I think that was that. Like the first time where I realized something is not right. I wouldn't do it, so I'm just assuming the other person wouldn't do it.
For sure. I was last week in London, and I visited a university there, and I asked what do they learn in the technical part, and they said to me they work with MATLAB. They have one lecture that is just Excel, and I asked them, are you planning or thinking to use something with artificial intelligence or software? No, because our students need to learn the basics and the foundations. But I think the foundations have changed, right? So now it's completely different.
It is different. And the last moment was yesterday. Indeed, I was visiting a customer in the chemical industry, very similar to coatings, but slight difference. But in the lab, they actually use the same methods and the same equipment and everything. And you had this one person, we actually interpreted his work. He was literally doing screenshots from files on the computer, send that over Teams to himself, because 2 hours later he goes back to the desk and takes and searches and then takes the screenshots and put them in an Excel file. And he just said that's how I waste time. So when the experts even tell you the word I waste my time, it's a strong thing to say for an employee in his work context, with his boss next to me and everything, right?
Yeah, they get paid for an amount of hours and they willingly recognize they waste time doing these things.
Correct. So I think it's been a journey seeing over and over different types of problems, but it's actually, I think the very first time was this one person who, he started to talk about his job and it was so interesting. And then you see the same person doing something so, useless as just copying cells from one file to the other.
And that just doesn't make any sense. But now it went from 0 to 100, and now we have software, prediction support, different providers. But let's start with a definition question. So we've heard LIMS. What are they?
So you can find different definitions. LIMS is basically a software for lab information management. It comes from accredited lab, so everything that is certified and strong from the quality side. At least that's our understanding of it. And we do think this is a good solution in certain type of industries and labs, but we do think most of the R&D labs, especially in the coatings industry, but every type of, or every industry related to coatings, so it could be also adhesives and so on and so forth, we think there must be a better approach. So that's why we started to basically look at what exists and what are the current pain points with these solutions. Not only the pain points in the daily work, but it's always the same approach. When you're trying to be innovative, you look at how people work or how they do specific things, and then you look at the current solutions and what are the problems with those. So we've been listening basically a lot in the first years And that's how we came up with our material intelligence approach.
And then you realize that LIMS are not covering all the pain points that the industry is covering.
Correct.
LabV is a little bit more tailored, so to speak, to the we have in our industry, right?
Correct.
Could you make some examples?
We basically realized LIMS, I mean, the first letter is L for lab, right? So it's a lab tool, and R&D is more than just a lab. So that's where it started. And we said, how does it look like if the solution that R&D needs is kind of the solution for R&D and for the people in the lab and also for the processing engineers? So that was the starting point, I would say, of our approach definition. And then we just asked questions like, what do you try to achieve, and what is the tool you may be using now? Because we do have a lot of contacts and now some customers who had LIMS or have LIMS
in transition,
and they transitioned to our system. And they all said, well, with the LIMS, I can almost perfectly manage the process. Everything is documented and archived so that any audit type of work is perfectly traceable and everything. But I don't manage the output, which is the innovative material or the innovative recipe. And that's where we thought, but that's the purpose of R&D, right? The R&D is not supposed to be a perfect lab. It's supposed to be a perfect formulation development.
For that, you have the production line. R&D should be more like a playground where new ideas come up and then you can keep everything on track. And that also brings a problem. So our industry, especially coatings, we have a lot of seniors, formulators. In R&D is very advanced in age and they are going to retire at some point. Where do you think, and everyone is talking about this knowledge loss, where do you think LabV is, or artificial intelligence support is going to make sure that is lost? Is it going to support it? Is it going to be worse?
So unfortunately, we cannot solve this problem that people retire. There is no solution for that, which is a good thing.
Nice.
It's a good thing. They deserve it. So we've been, the observation here is, first it was in Germany. Now it's actually confirmed that it's in whole Europe. I assume it would be the same in other regions of the world, but we focus here. So there is a whole generation which is somewhere in between, I would say, your parents and my parents, or your parents. At least my parents retired already, almost 10 years ago. So this generation, the baby boomers, retiring now until the next couple of years, which is no surprise, but they have been the last ones working mostly before Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Office was introduced or computers were introduced. So they have a completely different way of gathering information. And we realized that what happens if the person with this expertise, being in the department for 30 plus years, leaves. Well, even if it's planned, you don't leave within 2 weeks. It's like ahead, like a half a year ahead or something. So you know it. But we've seen customers. We actually had one customer in another industry, but it's very comparable. One of the engineers was retiring, and the first thing HR and the head of R&D did is to offer him a contract as an external consultant, part-time, after the date he was retiring, because they said he's been involved in 50% of our projects over the last 30 years. So it's kind of a process. It's kind of part of the workflow now that we ask him for his opinion and expertise. So that's the loss. That's the problem. Now, last year, I heard another one. It's an additional one, and it's a different perspective. It's not the perspective of I'm losing you as a colleague. You have so much expertise and I cannot talk to you anymore. I cannot ask you. That's a disadvantage for the team and for me probably as a team member. But if you look at it as the owner of the company, I am basically as an owner investing in people. I'm paying salaries to invest in building knowledge, developing expertise. If the expertise and the knowledge disappears when the person retires or leaves the company, I actually lost my money. And that was a conversation I had with the CEO of a mid-sized German company last year, and I guess it was another surprise, but I never thought about it in this way. Right,
a realization point. You say, "Oh,
yeah,
true."
So I think that's that's probably, these are the main reasons. If you want to think a little bit wider, R&D is the key point to be innovative, and innovation equals probably competitive advantage. So losing knowledge is losing innovation capacity or capability is equals losing competitiveness. I think that's something, and you had other episodes about large movements in the industry those past months.
A couple already.
And I mean, we know how difficult it is in Europe right now with the industry. We should just altogether search for possibilities. I'm not saying we are the only option and that's the best solution, but we are trying with this software product we have to play a part in saving or keeping knowledge within the company and building. I used to say always as a joke, we're trying to build your digital brain within the R&D. We don't call it this way, right? It's also not a digital colleague. It's close to this, but
it's a support, brain support that
if you can envision a digital brain or digital memory, that's where we want to go together with the customers. So that's part of the mission, if you will.
You mentioned Europe and that we have already a lot of market moves. How do you see Europe in terms of regulation affecting REACH? So we have also the topic of PFAS, low VOC. We have every month comes a new problem with a chemical component. How do you think this is affecting the need for structured data or the need of this kind of softwares?
I think it's just increasing the need because you need to know more. You need to be able to react very quick. Take an example. Tomorrow you have a new raw material that is forbidden and you have to replace it in 10, 20, 50 different formulations. You can do it by hand, or you could do it in a more structured way. You could even think further. It's already possible. If you have enough data, you could almost use the software to actually make replacement suggestions, right? So it probably has negative sides to have so much regulation, or so many different regulations. I'm not deep enough in the chemicals on the chemical side to evaluate that. I just hear or listen to customers, and I think that's difficult. It's probably a good thing as a consumer. There is many sides of it, but if I look at the work in the R&D, it just puts even more pressure, and it's highlighting the need for speed, reaction time. I have to be reactive, which means I have to know very quick what to do, where is which raw material in which formulation, do I have an alternative, do I have to qualify a new raw material very quickly, which is also a topic. I mean, that's there is an example. It's when you go to a fast food, the French fries in this packaging, there is a coating around it, right?
For sure.
And so there is an American fast food chain. They have, for example, in Europe, one very simple requirement. The supplier of this packaging has, in case of a request about charge number, like a batch number, whatever it is, they have 4 to 6 hours, I think, if I remember correctly, to provide all the information about everything, including the coatings, like everything that was on the packaging, right? So imagine if any type of regulation is just
interesting that you say we have a lot. There is a lot of demand for speed, and there is a lot of new regulation. With speed comes competition, and here in Europe we have, of course, LabV, and we're very strong here. But we've seen it also when companies acquire other companies here in Europe, America, China, India, and so on. How do you see the competition in this new field? Because this is something that just have been going on for 5-10 years maximum. How do you see the other companies approaching? Is more like we try to keep it in Europe? Are the other companies trying to come to us as well already here?
So the main competitor is Microsoft Excel, to be honest, right? If you look at the software providers, of course, LIMS providers, there are a lot of them in Europe. Many of them are very good and well established. It is a type of competition as well. There I do see some movement. The realization that it needs a little bit more focus on the data, maybe a little more work on the AI possibilities, whoever, there are enough possibilities to integrate that. And then you have basically a couple of software solutions, very specialized. And then there is us, and everything else is actually American based, or somewhere in Asia, Singapore and so on. But it's a lot coming from the US. And the interesting part is they are huge companies. They have large fundings. It's a different type of competition, right? It's a different league. On the other hand, they don't care so much, I think, for SMBs. So our typical European SMBs, the German Mittelstand, these layer, the layer 100 to a couple of 100 million euros, they struggle a little bit more as American companies because the decision process are different than they used to. If you go to a large one, I don't know, the Henkel, Hempel, BASF and so on, when they purchase a solution that's a well-established process, there is a screening and comparison and everything, and you do demos, it's not very difficult to sell. You just have to be the best. The layer under that, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more into understanding the customers. So we just looked at that. We looked at ourselves. We are a European founders team, right? I'm French and my co-founder Stefan is German. We are a German company. We belong to the Netsch Group, which is a German family-owned business. And we are truly European. So we said, well, let's make Europe our playground, because the mission is just to help European companies and the European industry to redefine how they do marketing innovation, because we think the European industry, especially coatings industry, which is literally everywhere in our daily life, has been the best industry in the world. We invented so much and so many things. We don't want that to disappear. So we want to just be part of this and play a role in that and keep it.
Yeah, and talking about customers, one of the problems we get, so when I hang out in another conference and chat with paint manufacturers, they say to me that now that they have so many options, that means a lot of different generated data. Mm-hmm. And since it's not created by a lab scientist, it's created by a machine. Mm-hmm. They don't know to which knowledge does it belong. It belongs to the company, belongs to the software provider company. Mm-hmm. Where do we stand there?
We have a very simple approach. The data belongs to the customer. We own the software. Our job is the software. So our job is providing the tool to be innovative, to develop the best formulations and so on and so forth. Whatever is in the database, it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the customer. And whatever is generated by our AI assistant, or I don't want to say generated, but maybe any new learning or potential IP coming out of that belongs to the customer. That's how we think. We don't have any trouble getting information from lab equipment into our database because, at least not that I know, but all the manufacturers, they don't use, they use basic data formats like CSV, Excel files, or these, like you can use it. It's not encoded. I've never heard about someone complaining about the manufacturer saying, no, what you measure is mine. So I do not see a large problem there, but it's a question that is asked, like it's raised. They raise the question almost every single time. Is it your data, or is it LabV's data, or is it my data?
Yeah, right. Do you have access to, as a provider, do you have access to the data your customers give into the system, or is a completely closed system that they can just upload it and it's their whole database?
So we don't have access, with one exception, which is our technical support. In case of a technical problem, they could look into the customer's data system or database. I've seen my customers' data only when visiting them. So paying a visit is helpful because then I actually see how LabV looks like, right?
Sure.
But other than that, we have no access. We don't see anything. We do have very simple things we look at, but it's completely, it's all over the customer base. It's just our numbers that we look at, but that's it. I don't know what they're doing on their formulation. I don't know which raw materials they use. I have no idea, and we don't want that. First of all, we don't see any value, because it would not work to build a large data pool from the coatings industry because everyone is doing something different. You cannot compare a paint formulation for automotive application with something with outdoor product or IKEA furniture. Like, what's the point? So we thought about it very early. Like, is there any potential for the customers to benefit from that? We didn't find anything, so we said we're not going to work on that. We work. It's very important to us, and I think every provider is doing the same. But we work very focused on how to make the customer's data as safe as possible. Every single database is separated from the others. Like, there is no chance another customer can go into your system. There is no chance our team goes into your system. There is probably no chance that anyone from the outside goes into your system. There is no chance, because it's technically impossible, that some type of a fake Excel file through hacking is being sent to the database in your name. It's not possible that we have the technical, let's say, technical infrastructure in place to avoid that.
Yeah, there is always this concern that the system is going to learn from the input you give, and then the company behind could harvest that to tailor or approach different companies with the product. So it's this concern of, it's my data just being used by myself or by my team.
And I think that it's a good point, because it's still new. Thank you, ChatGPT, right? It's like you use ChatGPT and you actually have to tell the system if you want your data to be used or not. In our case, it's completely different. The AI assistant is not learning from the data. It's an LLM mapped using the database, but it doesn't learn from the data. It just uses the data, which is different. We don't train the LLM. We just use the, standard best performing LLM right now, and it has access to one database, and it can do a lot with that. If you think about predictions and so on, it's different, because it's a proactive training when you use machine learning, and that we only do if the customer asks for it. And we usually do it with the customer anyway, because we need the human expertise. So I don't see a risk, at least not the way we approach it. I cannot speak for
other companies.
Everyone
is different at the end of the day. But, well, back to you, to LabV. Now it's going to be used in Esslingen. So you're going to have a collaboration or a gig with them in the university. How significant is this step for the industry, that now the future formulators are going to learn how to use a software?
Again, a type of realization, if you want, but what is a transformation for an industry? It's what happens in a company, and it's what happens on the educational side. And for the first years, we were in touch, but we never tackled that very seriously, I would say. And when we came across Professor Schachmann, who is probably the one who is teaching, I don't know how many percent, 70, 80% plus of the German or German-speaking lab experts, we both saw that there is an opportunity to just show students and tell them that there isn't a different way to work. It doesn't have to be Excel chaos.
It can be something different.
So starting this new semester, in March 2026 now, the students who are working in the lab are going to use LabV to document their experiments, document their formulations, the variation between the formulation and what they did in the lab, and the formulation in the sample, and probably use LabV as an input to their project reports. So they compare different type of paint formulations, different temperatures and so on. What we don't do yet, we kind of deactivate some of the features we have. So the AI assistant will probably not be used very much at the beginning. And the whole automated reporting functionalities either.
They should learn to do it by themselves first of all.
Correct. That's what we don't want to. We are engineers as well. You have to try and learn, right? To do mistakes. So we don't want to interfere in that. And whenever the professor feels that it's the right time or feels ready for it, we will follow. We're not pushing very much. What we will do though is maybe this semester, I'm not sure yet, so it could be next semester, at least having kind of a keynote or, a course, maybe an hour to explain to the students. Yeah, so here, what is about AI in R&D and in coatings R&D? So that's kind of the approach step by step.
But that clarifies that it's a change, and now there is not Excel chaos, now there's a new tool. I remember when I studied chemistry in the university that I had like 3 months of Excel, 3 months of MATLAB, and 3 months of Wolfgang. And now it seems that all summed up, and now LabV will be the thing that students will be learning. But this comes with a risk, or at least professionals can see a risk. Are the students going to rely heavily on AI or supported formulation and take away fundamental understanding or creative concept that at the end helps to do new formulations or improvements?
I think this is going to change, like the way they learn is going to change in the future, but it's not just in this specific case. Probably it's going to be everywhere. I mean, I would love to make a interview at the after, I don't know, somewhere in the university, interview the students and ask them like how much of your studying you do with ChatGPT. 80%
minimum.
So I think that's going to change. It's for sure. How is it going to change? I'm not sure, or I don't know. I don't really. I do have ideas. We work on things, but basically, for now, it's about informing them, telling them what's possible, and maybe being this kind of translator between technology and the students. Because I don't think they have any module or whatever about AI, or not so much. And maybe step by step is going to be the same way you described for you. In your case, you're going to have for one semester, 2 hours a week AI course, and then you're going to learn anything about prediction. But I can imagine that the students in the future will basically go into the industry, leave with their masters or whatever it is, and then have a different approach to their new job. I'm convinced about that because there is absolutely no reason to keep doing this Excel-based R&D work. That it's not working. And funny enough, it's the very younger people, they actually don't understand it.
I can barely use Excel.
It's just it's like it's very early in the LabV, the very early LabV days. We had a young person. It wasn't a student anymore, but a young person, like just young professional. And the person actually told, when you visit the customer, there is the official part and there is the part where you have lunch or something. And they're a little bit more relaxed, right? And obviously, we were talking a little bit about life and everything, and he said, I arrived here and they had paper. I said, I'm sorry, but paper, like I don't use paper. I don't even know. I can write, but I never write. And I think that's the same thing with Excel and AI. It's going to, at some point, it's going to be, what do you mean with exercise?
What's
I don't understand it. Yeah. It's like telling a 15 years old, you don't have to send a 15 minutes voice message, just call the person. Say, what do you mean with calling? I don't do phone.
What is phone?
I think that's so you can apply this to pretty much every every side of what we do.
And to keep now the vision in the future, LabV is very strong in Europe. I would say potentially top 1 we will have it. So where do you see Europe? Is it leading or lagging in digital R&D infrastructure? For what you see from your customers?
Depends on which compared to what or which region.
Right? Well, compared to the big players.
Compared to the US, we are probably behind. That's probably that. And there is also a different mindset, different approach to new technologies. but I don't think we are as far behind as the whole Europe bashing. If you go on LinkedIn and these kind of things, it's kind of depressing sometimes. I don't think that's that bad. Companies try a lot with the resources they have. That's a fact. They're motivated. So I think Europe is catching up with its own pace and also European style. And I think we have to accept that. We are not Americans. If we were Americans, we would be in the US. We are Europeans. We think different. We're not a country. We have a union of 27 countries with
We are a lot.
27 languages almost and 27 cultures and 27 different goals as well. In the US, it's a little bit different. It's also a federal union, but so I wouldn't try to compare so much. I would just try to get inspired by other regions, even China. China is probably so much more innovative than the US in some aspects. Why just don't look at it and say, how can I use this best practice and translate that, adapt that to my European situation? So it is behind, but I don't think we're so far away, especially not in the cutting industry.
Yeah, helps to listen that we are not. It's always the typical thing that in Europe we bring the regulation and then the rest of the world makes the innovation. But I think in this case we are also taking part into the game.
Mm-hmm.
But we are going to sum up a little bit the podcast now, and I would like to ask you, what are the next strategic steps for LabV? So what's coming next?
More and better use of artificial intelligence functionalities. We're not an AI solution. We are a software solution with AI inside. So prediction, as one word is the word is prediction, and then the prediction, it goes from predicting or planning potential experiments up to, at some point, formulation prediction, which is much more complicated. So I think that's it. Everything else is just minor productivity improvements with, I want to say, daily functionalities, like smart things that people actually want to solve. But the big development for this year and next year is definitely coming from what we call the AI assistant to a co-engineer or co-chemist. That's the vision with an agent system in the software that is basically fully integrated and not, so that's where we put the largest effort right now.
And now, like, if you were running for presidency, if for our European R&D John managers or future experts, one piece of advice that you would give them about software, artificial intelligence, new tools?
I think, coming back to this question about Europe versus others, for example, the US, I think that's this type of mindset. The risk adversity is not a great thing. Obviously, I'm biased as an entrepreneur because I just live a risky life, right? That's the core of it. But if it was only one advice, it's not. Software doesn't mean IT project, doesn't mean complexity, it doesn't necessarily mean big risks. Just have a look at it, ask for demos, like challenge the software providers. Don't let software providers convince you that, if they say yes to everything, there is something wrong. So be the one who's in the position of challenging and say, I want this. Can you do it? Yes, no? Can I try it? Is there any way for me to try it? And if the provider is good enough, it's going to help you. And I think it's true for everything related to digitalization. I was taking a little bit the example of LabV, but just be ready to be a little bit more bold. Small risks, if you want to call it risk, but you're not going to lose anything. You're going to learn a lot. And that's the only way to get better.
Yeah, before it was used to be in the laboratory, you would challenge an experiment, try it different, and now you just do it with software. So
that's what I'm still struggling with. The people in the lab, even the people, the R&D experts, the engineers, the chemists and everything, they do trial and error every single day. But somehow when it comes to larger decisions, they don't know how to do it. So it's weird. So yeah, if I would one piece of advice, maybe that's a better summary. You're right. It's like do what you do in a lab to apply it to any other decision as a manager.
Yeah.
Trial and error. That's the only way to learn.
Well, but with this, thank you so much for today.
Thank you for having me.
We could be
Really
talking for
appreciate
2 hours more.
Probably.
And thank you so much, all of you, for listening. And we see each other for the next episode.